And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers defeat the Iowa Hawkeyes 89-77 at Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall. The victory, which Indiana desperately needed, snaps a 4-game losing streak, moves Indiana to 16-8 overall, 6-7 in Big Ten play, and at least for a moment, at least for a night, allows us to kind of feel good about this team again and to remember that, you know, in all the bracket projections, this team is still an NCAA tournament team, despite all the losses and despite what they're facing coming up, and they're still going to have to win some more games. This was an important victory for Indiana to get back on a good track. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms. We are going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And let's start this show the way that we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And, you know, coming into this game, coming off those 4 losses, how poorly Indiana played against Purdue, it really felt like something good needed to happen early in the game. You know, you kind of felt like it would be one of those games where there'd be a little bit of a weird energy at Assembly Hall. And, you know, early on, it was a bit of a struggle for Indiana. Iowa was up 9-5. Indiana really struggling to get anything going on offense. You know, credit to Al Durham, who was kind of the one guy pushing the ball, trying to make some things happen. But then Devonte Green came in. He immediately hit a 3 to put Indiana up 11-9. He would then make another one soon thereafter. Indiana would end up taking a 19-13 lead in the first half on a 9-4 run, and then Luka Garza hit one of his, many shots from the first half, hit a 3 at the top of the key. That made it 19-16. And then the floodgates opened as Devonte came right back down and hit another one. At that point, Sean Morris had definitely the best line of his career. He said, Devonte is like he's like nuclear power. When he's harnessed, you can light up an arena. When he's not, you've got Chernobyl, which was so true. And on this night, Devonte was harnessed and he was lighting up. He would go down and make another 3 to make it 25-16. That got the crowd into it, got everyone feeling good. It sparked a 12-0 run that would give Indiana a 31-16 lead. And I don't believe Iowa got any closer than 10 the rest of the way. Devonte making those shots picked up the energy of everyone. Again, credit to Al, credit to Trayce. I thought those guys came out and really brought some energy early. But when Devonte came in and made shots, it just picked up everyone. His offense was the catalyst in the first half. He finished that half with 18 points. He was 5 of 8 from 3. Had some rebounds, had assists, was really doing a lot. And then, to his credit, came back in the second half and hit a couple of huge threes late that really sealed it. When it was 71-16, it looked like Iowa might start coming back. End of shot clock. Devonte drained one from the right wing, and then he hit another one to make it 81-66. Devonte would finish with 27 points, 7 3-pointers. And while a lot of guys played well tonight, and we'll talk about them all, it's undeniable that Devonte's shooting, as it can often be in big wins for Indiana, was the catalyst to getting this win tonight. Hat tip to Devonte. He played well with his brother in the stands. And that is the banner moment. Okay, our banner moment tonight brought to you, as always, by our friends at Home Field Apparel, a company that was founded by an IU grad that remains based in Indianapolis. And, if you go to Home Field's website now, they have over 60-plus schools available on their site. So many different schools now, but IU was their first school. It remains their first love. They remain huge supporters of IU athletics, and we were up there on Saturday. They came down to support us at Switchyard. We appreciate their support of our show, and this is why we suggest that you go there, because they're awesome guys. But even more important than that, for an apparel company, their stuff is great. Their shirts are so comfortable, and they maintain that comfort even after you wash them, whether it's the t-shirt, the long sleeve tee, the hoodie, whatever you get. It's incredibly comfortable, and it's adorned with a unique logo that celebrates Indiana's past. This is their niche. They go to schools, they pull back logos that aren't being used anymore but that people love, bring them back, give them a second life, and give you unique apparel that you're not going to find anywhere else. And because you are a member of the Assembly Call audience, you get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout, and you will get 20% off your entire order. That's Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. Go to homefieldapparel.com today and get the most unique and comfortable IU apparel anywhere. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Andy, we will go to you for your bottoms line on tonight's IU victory.
So many different places to hit, with the offense really waking up. The defense played not great throughout, but I thought they, in some stretches, were able to really make it hard for Iowa, who's an incredibly talented offensive team. And I just thought the level of effort was different. You saw more guys diving on the floor and things that you didn't see in the Purdue game and some of the other games during the losing streak. I just thought the effort level seemed to be there. You can apply that to whatever you want. I don't know. Nobody is going to sit here and say this team has it all figured out at this point, because we've watched them throughout the season. But this was a game in a really a tough spot of, you can say it wasn't a must-win game, but at this point, to watch this team potentially lose this game and go on the road for 4 or 5 on a 5-game losing streak, there would be little reason for optimism if they hadn't been able to come through tonight. And I thought, to your point, Devonte gave him the spark. Those threes came early in a run of 16 possessions where IU scored on 15 of them in the first half. That is good. Not the kind of offense we have become accustomed to. And yeah, absolutely. And the other stretch that I thought was really important was the end of the first half. Things were, Iowa had whittled it down to 10. Rob, I think it was, ran down a long rebound on a missed 3 between 2 Iowa guys, came up with a 50-50 ball, got it up to Justin for a layup, and then Al made that 3 at the end of the half. And at one point I was like, can they push it to 20 before the half? And then it turned into, can they just avoid disaster? And they split the difference and then ended up going in up 15. So I thought that stretch was big. And then to your point, they played well enough at the beginning of the second half to push that out a little bit more, and felt like they tried to start hanging on a little bit too early to just be able to run the clock out. But it did feel like there were any number of moments tonight when Iowa started to make a little run, and somebody, wasn't always the same guy, somebody made just a shot to stem the tide a little bit. And that's something that has been missing in some of these long scoring droughts. So there were a few plays here and there that I'm sure we'll hit that, kind of at least stop that momentum and got going that way. So I thought it was a much needed performance from IU, and curious to see how they can take that on the road again for 4 of these next 5. But a really big spot for a team that had not a lot of people believing in them, I think, to a large extent, to come out and play that way tonight. So good for them. And we're starting a collection to take Danny Green on the road with the team. So if anybody, we'll have to get up a link for donations for that later. I feel like people would be willing, though.
Yeah, because whenever he shows up, Devonte goes off.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ryan, not much to rant about tonight. What is your opening statement?
And Ken Bykov just posted this on Twitter, and it's really important to look at. In the first half, Devonte Green was 5 of 11, hit 5 of 8 from 3, and went 3 of 3 from the free throw line. In the second half, he only took 4 shots. And that's very not Devonte Green. Like, when he starts hitting shots, he usually just starts launching. And he took some bad shots in this game, don't get me wrong. But he was 2 of 4 in the second half and made 3 of his 4 free throws. That's a guy who, it seemed, at least for the night, like he understood, just because you're making shots doesn't mean that you should take 20. And that was a reined in Devonte Green. I also thought defensively he was a scrapper tonight, and he was focused, and he played better, and it was a different guy than we've seen. And there's been a lot of talk this week about senior leadership, about upperclassmen not pulling their weight and not doing what they're supposed to do. I thought, yeah, he threw away some lobs. Yeah, he took a couple threes where you were just kind of like, come on, dude, that's never going to go in. But I felt like in general, that's a guy who recognized some of the problems with the way he's been playing and fixed them. Now, will it last till the next game? We don't know. His whole career has been up and down, and just when you think it's turned a corner, it drops back. But for one night, you saw what you want from Devonte Green, and you don't need him to score 27 points like he did tonight. You just need him to be able to knock down a shot when he's open and not force shots, not throw the ball away, not get lost on defense, not try and pay attention to where he might be able to reach in and get a steal and lose his man. You just need him to play within the team concept. And when he does that, when he makes shots, that's a guy who's really valuable to the team and can be really valuable. We just haven't seen that consistently. Tonight we got it, and we got the ultimate version of that, like we got against Florida State. And it was beautiful to watch and beautiful basketball. And man, guys, how much easier is basketball when you're actually making some shots? It's
amazing how that works, isn't it?
We talk about that all the time. And, this team needs to be able to shoot threes and knock down threes and not, and get points in different ways and all this stuff. But you saw tonight what it does. It opens up the middle. It opens up some driving lanes. It puts pressure on the other team to have to come back and match that 3. You saw Iowa take some forced threes after Indiana made a three because they're thinking, oh, we got to get those points back or we're going to be down by even more. Even when, you get a couple twos and you're still matching, it just psychologically has a huge impact on the other team. It has a push for momentum. There's so much that can happen when you start knocking down shots. And the number one thing, obviously, is it puts pressure on the other team. And it makes basketball a heck of a lot easier. And we haven't seen that much this year. We saw it tonight from a couple guys. I mean, they hit 11.
11.
And Devonte had 7 of them. So other guys were not going to. Rob Phinisee had 2 big ones that he stepped into and shot confidently. If these guys can knock down some shots, this team is still dangerous. This team still has a ceiling on it. When they don't hit shots and they don't play smart and they play like they have the last couple games, that's what you get. You get a 4-game losing streak. Tonight was the example of what you do. I know Iowa's not a good defensive basketball team, but still they had to hit the shots. It's not just about being open. And so I think that Devonte Green led the way tonight, but you saw other people getting confident in their offensive games because some shots fell and they started, driving or looking to the post more often or understanding they're going to get the ball back. It really fixes everything when shots go in. So that's what you saw tonight, and hopefully something that carries over.
Andy Ryan figured out the secret: make shots.
Man, we should have said something earlier.
It is amazing.
No, but we've been saying that for a while, and I think people are tired of hearing just make shots and things will be better. But it's true. I mean, you see how easy it is.
Here's your stat of the night. Indiana shot better from 3-point range than they did on layups. The Hoosiers 11 of 21 from deep, 9 for 22 on layups. But what I do want to talk about, because and this dovetails off what you were saying, Ryan, and I thought it was really the story of the game, is it wasn't just that Indiana shot the ball well on their end. This was some of the best 3-point defense that we've seen from Indiana this year. Indiana went 11 for 21. Iowa was 4 of 14 from deep. And 3 of those makes were by Garza. And, he's going to be able to get that shot off.
A 6'10" guy standing out there shooting threes. You can't defend that.
I have nothing nice to say about Iowa after this game. I was just kind of disgusted by the way that they flopped and how dirty they were. I will say this: that guy is magnificent to watch. Incredibly skilled.
Good.
So he makes 3 threes. So their other guys only made 1 3. Now Frederick obviously went out, but when he was in, Indiana was really defending him well. Justin Smith did a nice job on Wieskamp. And Andy, when you look at, how are you going to beat this Iowa team? Garza's going to get his points, and he did, 38. He was great, and Indiana wasn't going to stop him. But the key, and look, Iowa scored 1.04 points per possession. It's not like this was a lockdown defensive performance. But remember, context matters. That's an elite offense. And I thought what Indiana did to their wing guys, frustrating them, for the most part, keeping them out of the lane, although there was some slippage late, especially on Wieskamp. But I thought, early, mid part of the first half on, and then at the beginning of the second half, I thought the perimeter defense was really, really good. And that's been an issue for this team. But I thought Rob played well. Al had his moments. Devonte had his moments. Justin did a nice job. Those guys really helped to neutralize Iowa's other guys. And if you're going to beat Iowa, that's how you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I think one of the Hoosier Sound guys put this on Twitter, but that if Archie's plan was to basically just let Garza get his and do everything you could sell out to stop everybody else, that was a pretty clever plan. I don't know whether he would admit it or whether that was really what the game plan was. But yeah, I thought for the most part, they really did a good job pressuring Iowa at the 3-point line. They got a few open looks, but I think they did a good enough job early that they rattled them a little bit. They struggled at times getting rotation over to cut off drives. They gave up some straight line drives to the basket where nobody could get over. But I did think in general they did some good things. Sean Morris brought up on the broadcast what you said, that Justin Smith, while I thought he didn't have a great game offensively by any stretch, I did think he was after kind of a rocky start. I thought when he came back in, played really well. And I'm surprised that we've gone this far without mentioning the defensive Race Thompson. I'm surprised Ryan can even contain himself with how well Race played over the. But
I wasn't going to say anything and just see how long it took Ryan to just.
I was stunned that it was not brought up earlier, but he really.
What I'm waiting for you guys to mention him, and I'll just be like, yeah. Who's been telling you that?
Yeah. It's not like we've been disputing it. Anyway, I thought he did a really good job on help defense on multiple occasions, and I thought was just disruptive, and some of that was just the activity level. You just saw guys really try to fight through some of the screens that Iowa was setting in a way that guys did not fight through screens against Purdue. And so some of that goes to effort, and you get rewarded for that at times. But I did think the defense, for the most part, was pretty good. Garza's a tough matchup, and I tell you, I thought it's probably challenging to praise the defense of a guy who played a large part in guarding someone who scored 38 points. But I thought Trayce did a heck of a job for being a freshman.
He was great, man. Trayce was great.
There's only so much you can do, you know?
I mean, but I thought he really tried to push him out, didn't give him deep position, made him make shots over him. And I think of the points that Garza scored around the basket, not a ton of those were on Trayce. I just thought for a freshman in that situation, I thought he did a really good job. But like I said, odd to praise someone's defense who played a role in that. But I did think he played really well and gave IU the flexibility to play differently offensively. He and Race would switch sometimes on guys, and Race, took some turns guarding Garza as well. But I thought they did a good job. They were just disruptive. They made them uncomfortable. And we've talked a lot of times that IU has struggled to do that. And I thought that with the exception of a few plays, I think Garza always looked comfortable. But they forced him into a handful of turnovers as well. So
I mean, at the very least, force him to shoot over you, not going past you, and they did that a couple times.
Well, I mean, you could see it at the start of the game. I mean, they came right out, got it into him. Joey Brunk, I'm sorry, this was just a bad matchup for him. And, he only played 10 minutes, had 4 fouls. They did whatever they wanted offensively when Brunk was out there. It happened early. Once we went to the lineup of Trayce and Race, and those guys started guarding him, they were able to do work early and sometimes not let him get position. And that's what you have to do with Garza, is basically deny him the ball, because the guy's so skilled, he's going to score points. But, Ryan, that leads me into what I wanted to talk about, which is those two guys. I thought Trayce was awesome tonight. I thought Devonte's shooting was obviously the most important element of the game. I thought Trayce was the best player on the court for Indiana.
I agree.
17 points, 10 boards. He had 7 offensive rebounds. I thought his energy from the tip tonight was outstanding. Like I said, I thought he and Al really brought good energy early that kind of allowed Indiana to, stick with it when they weren't really getting much going early on. And then when you have that combination with Race, Ryan, we've talked about this a lot this year. Those two guys play well together. And you think
they're
back to
mobile defensively.
Think back to some of Indiana's really good runs against good teams. It feels like it's always those two guys out there, and then whoever else you want spread around them. So and look, we know with Race, it's about health. It's about just keeping him out there. And, tonight he got 25 minutes. He looked good. This is how this team is going to have to play down the stretch.
Agreed.
And on those two guys, the best lineups involve those two guys together.
Well, and here's the thing: they can switch, and both, they're both big guys. You may not think of Race as big as Trayce, but he's not that much smaller than him either. I mean, they both have long arms. They both are bigger guys. They're physical. They're more physical than they look because they're younger and look kind of skinnier, but they're physical players. And you're right about Trayce. I mean, 7 offensive rebounds tonight.
Man. He's great.
Two blocks, a steal, but then you look at Race's line too. 10 points from Race, 4 of 6 from the field. He was efficient. 4 of 6, 2 of 5 from the free throw line. Got to work on the shot. We've talked about that endlessly about him. He can make them sometimes. Sometimes he doesn't. He just has to get more consistent. 4 rebounds, but then he had, 2 blocks, 4 steals. Race is a guy who makes things happen when he's on the floor. And you have to have somebody that can stir the drink like that, especially defensively. And he's a guy who recovers defensively. He helps defensively. He can help pick up somebody else's guy if, they're just ranging towards the basket. He can block shots. He can reach in and knock a ball loose. He anticipates passes incredibly well. That's where his steals were coming from, was coming over the top of somebody who was getting a pass in there. Whereas a lot of Indiana's guys are kind of passive and want to play, let your guy get the ball, just don't let him get by you, as opposed to being proactive and going and getting the ball. He does that a lot, and he's smart defensively. And he and Trayce Jackson-Davis, the reason I love them on the floor together, and you guys remember early in the preseason, in the non-conference, we were talking about that. Hey, that combination might be their best post combination. Then Joey Brunk started playing pretty well, and we got some matchups that were better for Joey. But I think that you look at those two guys and they're interchangeable on screens. They can help each other out. And if a break comes down and they're off, they can just switch who they're guarding. They can both take guys on the perimeter a little bit better than everybody else than the other big guys. You just look at that combination and you're like, ooh, what could be if these guys can continue to develop and continue to play and get minutes together. And I thought this was Race's best game. I thought Michigan State was his best game, but now I think this was his best game. I thought he was an integral part of everything they did tonight. And I think Trayce showed maybe his best conference game tonight, just all around, given the challenge defensively and given what he did offensively against a team that had size and had guys who they could throw at him, and they were throwing double teams at him constantly. I thought he played very well. So those two guys, I mean, I know Devonte's probably going to get a ton of game ball votes, but those two guys both have to be considered as well because of what they did in just both ends of the floor, how much effort they gave, and how much they can affect the game. I tweeted it out, and this goes for Trayce as well, but Race is a difference maker. You put him on the floor and you get better. And Trayce obviously is this exact same way.
Yeah, with Race, just stat sheet, 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4 steals, 2 blocks, and it just played really well. As you said, was able to do a lot of different things defensively, and was a guy who, given the fact that I was going to play small most of the time, except when they bring in Kreener to set moving screens, they really played small, and he was able to guard different guys. And we talked about them being able to switch and not lose a whole lot with he and Trayce. And then I thought with Trayce, it was just so many just effort plays on the glass. And I think it's one thing to see. It's something special when you see your best player making those kinds of effort plays, just relentless at times on the glass, just trying to get the ball, to create extra possessions, to do all those things. I just felt like that was really how he brought energy. Devonte's shot making brought energy to everybody, but I just thought there were moments when Trayce was just not going to be denied. And you look at that kid, freshman, playing 34 minutes, spending most of them guarding arguably the national player of the year, at the very least the Big Ten player of the year, and putting up a double-double and like I said, in 34 minutes with 7 offensive rebounds, battling against him. I thought it was a really, really impressive showing from him. So a good night from those guys. Hopefully they get some rest before the Michigan game. It's not a super fast turnaround, but you got Sunday afternoon before you come and play again. But I thought really acquitted themselves well. And in Race, it was a nice bounce back because he didn't really do a whole lot, didn't play a lot against Purdue, but it was definitely a better matchup for him than it was for Joey. And so kudos to him for being ready to come back after not playing a ton against Purdue and being able to step in and had a huge impact on the game tonight.
Hey, and tip of the cap to Durham, too. I thought he only played 10 minutes, but I thought they were impactful. The block he had was really good. The jumper. Durham, when you're open, keep shooting. Like, Durham can shoot the ball. And so I'm not even making a joke here. Like, he needs to keep shooting that shot.
And his passing is fantastic. He really is. He's their best passing big man. I don't think that's even close. And quite frankly, I think he's earning more minutes than Joey is right now. And that's nothing. Joey's a good effort guy. And I'm glad he's so
skilled.
I'm glad he's with the program. But you have to remember who Jerome Davis was before he got injured. He was a top 50 national recruit, probably should have been a top 30 recruit, probably would have been a top 20 recruit if he wasn't from Colorado, where they don't send scouts. And he has that skill. He does have that skill. And he's just been injured, and he's been, out of sorts and out of shape and all of those things. But that dude can play. And we talked about it early in the year that there were going to be games where he was going to have to impact the game. And quite frankly, in a night like tonight where Joey Brunk doesn't have it, Durham should be getting more minutes than he got.
But that's the formula. You're probably not going to get more than 10, 12 minutes from him, and you need the kind of impact that you got tonight. It's not going to jump out on the stat sheet, but I thought those were impactful minutes and important minutes.
I thought his mobility on defense has been better.
Slowly getting better, yeah.
And so he was able to play that. But he's another guy, like, you're just going to throw the kitchen sink at Garza at that point. It's another guy who can lean on him a little bit. And do those things. And I would agree. We shouldn't pass him over because he played well when he was in there, had that little running shot in the lane toward the end of the game too, that when IU was just trying to, any bucket got you closer to the finish line and winning the game.
Yeah. All right, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's 12-point victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes, I will point out tonight's meaningful moment that you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from this game. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
What's going on? It's Christian Wofford. What's the only thing better than an epic buzzer beater? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join my guys Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU game. Go Hoosiers.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jerod Morris here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms. We are breaking down Indiana's much-needed victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes. Tonight, the Hoosiers win by 12, snap their 4-game losing streak. And guys, it is time for tonight's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And for tonight's moment, I want to go back to the 15:30 mark in the second half. And I want to talk about Rob Phinisee because, Rob got the ball. He's bringing it up. He gets yelled at by Archie Miller. I mean, Archie took 2 steps onto the court and yelled at Rob for not pushing fast enough. And this was a theme. And you've kind of seen it game after game where Archie is kind of imploring these guys to push the pace. But he really, at this point, seemed frustrated with Rob for not getting the ball up the court. Now, the possession ends with Rob getting it up. He got it into Trayce. Trayce did a nice job of being patient, waited for the double team, got it out to Rob, and Rob made the 3. It was the second catch-and-shoot 3 of the game. And, to me, Andy, what this possession brought up was really what Rob is doing right offensively and what Rob is doing wrong offensively. Because I thought, this was a really mixed bag for Rob. He finished with 12 points, had 5 assists, went 2 for 3 from downtown. He had 3 steals. You're looking at it like, that's a pretty good game. But he had 5 turnovers. And I thought there were a lot of offensive possessions that were really hampered by his tentativeness, whether it was tentativeness to drive, tentativeness to know where to pass, tentativeness just pushing the ball up the court. In contrast with Al Durham, who I thought really every time he got the opportunity, pushed it. And so you saw Archie, yell at him, get mad. But then the one thing that Rob is doing confidently and in rhythm is on catch and shoot opportunities. He's been great. And I don't know what his percentage is in Big Ten play, but it feels like he's probably hitting about 50% of the threes that are catch and shoot. And so, that's obviously something to build on because we need those shots. And I thought Rob's defense was good, and we can talk about that later. But, for this team to get to the point where they can play offense consistently on a night when Devonte Green doesn't go supernova and go 7 of 11 from downtown, they're going to need more from Rob than they got tonight. And I just thought that tentativeness and Archie's frustration with it, was kind of a manifestation of part of the formula for winning that we had in the offseason that has gone wrong this year, which is Rob hasn't really taken that next step yet on offense as a playmaker and consistently. And I think that's still room for improvement for him and for this team.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was a play early in the game. I think before Devonte came in, that he had a really decisive drive to the basket. Potentially off of a turnover. I'm trying to look back here. No, it was off an Iowa miss, but he basically took it and went straight down the middle and did a really good job of getting to the rim. But that was the exception. I felt like for the most part tonight with him. I think guys got a little bit. Justin Smith had one like this where he made a nice drive to the lane, but then was hesitant to actually shoot the ball. Ended up traveling because he was kind of overthinking and passing. Yep. And IU did struggle. You brought up the point about the layups. I think part of that was Garza. I'm pretty sure he would have had to take out a taser at some point in the first half to actually pick up his second foul because there were a number of chances where guys tried to drive into him. And then I think everybody became a little bit tentative to do that. Rob did I talked about some of the big shots that went in when things were potentially getting away from him. He hit that runner at some point, somewhat middle to late second half to hit the rim a couple times and rolled in. That was a big shot at the time, and good to see him not afraid to take that. But yeah, to your point, he really at the beginning of the second half shot really well on those kickouts for 3. I thought Trayce passed the ball pretty well, and they were finding him open, and he converted. But I don't know how much of that you attribute to the injuries and to the things that he's gone through, but I think if they can unleash him a little bit more, get him to be more decisive, that we've seen even at times this year of really trying to go to the rim, struggling to finish. I don't know if some of those struggles are manifesting themselves in him being a little bit unsure, getting the ball in the lane and doing some of those things. So I think if they can continue to push that with him, it's clear that's what Archie wants to do, particularly in a game tonight where the pace was relatively high. I was low on players. This was the game to really kind of push it and try to assert yourself. And I would agree with you. It felt like he struggled to do that at times, but you still see enough flashes to think that it's still there and that he's going to figure it out. But you just don't know how much of that comes from general confidence, injury, or whatever the case may be.
I don't think the injuries are a big factor now physically. No, I don't know, what lingering impact they may have of, missed practice time and that kind of thing. But I don't think they're a big issue physically, at least from what I've heard.
Well, here's what I'll say about Phinisee in the second half. He did have those 4 turnovers in the first half. Second half, 10 points. He was 3 of 7 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. He made both his free throws late, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 2 steals. His second half was better. I agree. He's not pushing the ball the way Archie wants. And that's an instinctive thing that's just not kicking in for Rob. I mean, a lot of that is catch and you're on the run and go. And some guys have that and some guys don't. And Rob clearly needs to get there because Archie wants to push the ball. If you can get a bucket quick, good. You don't have to run your stagnant half-court offense that we sometimes see. You know, I mean, you can get that bucket quickly. So I think that we have to look at these things as two different halves. In the first half, I agree. He was pretty bad, and he was holding the team back a little bit with the turnovers and trying to force some things and not being decisive. I thought the second half, I thought he was better. I thought he moved the offense. The problem was, I think that the offense about the middle of the second half, I told you guys in our group text, I thought that Archie needed to call a timeout, set something up for the zone, because when they went zone, everything stopped. And guys were arguing about what they were in, and guys were running in circles and not doing them. We had about a 7-minute drought where we really weren't playing good offense. And you can't have that in Big Ten play. I mean, we've seen it this year. They were up by enough, and Iowa wasn't making enough shots to wind up hurting them. But that 7 to 8 minute drought, just because you won doesn't make it acceptable. You know, and just because you were ahead by 12 at that point doesn't make it acceptable and doesn't make it okay. So I think that at that point, Archie's got to be a lot quicker with the trigger of calling a timeout and just, hey, run one play that you know you're going to get a bucket out of, or at least a good look. You get that good look, maybe it loosens things up. Maybe it changes things. You know, draw something up. That's what you got the whiteboard.
Where's even hiding that play also?
I know, but just a one-time draw it up, get a back screen when you're usually getting a down screen on that play and get a wide open guy can change the momentum and just get you feeling good about yourself, and can turn, you know, keep a 4-minute drought from turning into an 8-minute drought, you know? And so I just thought he should have been quicker with the trigger. In the end, on the back end, we wound up using all our timeouts because of our issues inbounding the ball late in the game. So, you know, but at the same time, I just felt like there needed to be some kind of change there. And I don't really want to blame that on Rob necessarily. He's the floor general. He's supposed to be in charge. The coaching staff's got to be on top of that as well.
Yes, I do think some of this is on the coaching staff. I think it's a lingering concern that coach and point guard don't seem to be quite on the same page. And Rob just doesn't seem comfortable in the offense. Whatever that is attributed to, it's just a concern, you know? And so, you know, hopefully it continues to get better. I think there were some signs of improvement tonight.
Sure.
Just as we go on the road now for 4 out of 5, that's going to be really important if we're going to be able to get one of these victories. The other meaningful moment I wanted to point out, Andy, and then we'll get yours, and this is just a quick one, is at the 10-minute mark, you know, I was on a 7-0 run after Jerome's technical, which was a BS technical, and we can talk about it later. But it was 62-51 at that point, and it really felt like things were teetering a little bit. You know, it was kind of an 11-point lead that felt like a 1-point lead, just given, you know, how things have been going. And I thought Al and Race made a really good play. You know, Al was aggressive, threw a little bit of a wild pass, but Race made a great catch. He scored. It was an and one, but he missed the free throw. But I thought we really needed a bucket there, and those two guys just kind of created a play. It wasn't out of a set. It was just two guys playing basketball, and they made a play. The very next possession, then Devonte got it inside to Trayce. He got fouled, and that kind of settled things down again. And I actually thought, you know, Al Durham, his numbers don't jump out tonight. 6 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. And obviously, you know, those 2 wide open 3-pointers that he missed are probably the most memorable moments he had. I really thought Al played well tonight. He had some defensive lapses, but he hustled after him. He got on the floor. Like, I thought he was a leader tonight in emotion and just in action, even if not by production. And I know sometimes we're critical of him when the numbers aren't there, but I thought tonight he really played an important role in what Indiana was doing. And I thought that play in particular was a really important one, Andy.
Yeah, Al was one of the guys that really was diving around on the floor in this game. There was the play at the end where, you know, he gets beat, took a bad angle on an inbounds play, but he chased the guy down. Rob did a good job of stepping in, and Al is just flying down the court, knocks the ball away from behind, and they end up getting the ball back. So, I thought it was funny because I was just looking at the box score, and I had a similar thought to what you said, that I felt like the numbers don't necessarily tell the story of how well he played at times. He did have 4 assists, which was second on the team behind Rob. So that number does stick out as a really good one. But he was 1 of 5 from 3, hit the big one going into the half. I thought that was a really key play as well. But I thought it was a good bounce back game from him as well. And I think in games where obviously everything looks better when Devonte shoots the way that he does. But I think that takes such a burden off of Al and lets Al be the more of the supporting guy that he's probably best suited for at this level for this team.
For sure. Yeah.
But when Devontae's not shooting well, there's a burden that I think Al feels that he's trying to make up for things that are that way. And I think he just looked comfortable and didn't feel like he needed to force things. He took those kick out shots, and it would have been great not to miss the first one or the second one exactly like you missed the first one. But but in general,
Ryan will have a 10-minute breakdown of that.
Oh, well, I can't wait.
You guys
I look forward to it.
I already got the preview earlier.
I don't think anybody wants that. But maybe send it to him separately. But I thought it was a good bounce back game from him for sure.
No, what I'd say about Al is that play that you were talking about where he chased down, he made a mistake, chased down the guy, knocked the ball loose. I mean, that was a huge play in the game late as far as momentum goes, and made that play. I don't mind a guy making a mistake. I will never mind a guy making a mistake if he makes up for it with hustle and if he's playing hard. And he made up for a mistake with hustle. And you'll take that every single time. The mistakes you have a problem with are where the guy makes a mistake and doesn't run back on defense, or where a guy, misses a guy in the corner and then jogs up the floor on offense. Like, no, you make a mistake, you better be picking your heels up and getting, and running. And so I thought that was indicative of the way that Al played. He made mistakes, but I never felt like he wasn't playing hard and he wasn't being aggressive all night.
We have our first IU look like a Final Four team tonight in the chat. So things are just so much more fun and optimistic when Indiana wins. But by the way, the last point I want to make about Al, because Andy, you're so right. Sometimes it feels like we come on here and we judge him against the standard of like he's got to be Keith Smart when really the role he's supposed to play is Remy Abel. You know what I mean? And like that's really the one.
That's a weird comparison, but
what I'm saying is, you know what I mean? Like,
he's supposed to be a complimentary guard,
right? That's more the role that he's suited to. And look, he's getting the minutes when he's getting the opportunities. You need him to produce, but it is important to keep that in mind. When you look at kind of what he was as a recruit, what he is as a player, we got to be fair in how we evaluate guys. Andy, do you have any moments that you want to point out, or do you want to talk some stats?
There was only one other one that I had jotted down. I probably should have starred some of those baskets that stem the tide of an Iowa run. Although you mentioned the one from Race, that was during a really bad offensive stretch of the second half where IU had scored once out of roughly 10 possessions leading into that one. There was a stretch in the first half. I think this speaks a little bit to what we talked about with Trayce, where he blocks a shot on the one end. I didn't even know who the Till guy was on Iowa until this game tonight. Trayce did a drop step on him and just dunked on everyone. And then I think maybe the next possession, maybe the next offensive possession after that was one of those sequences where he was just all over the glass, just creating an extra possession and doing those things. So kind of got lost a little bit in how well he played, but that was a really quick, and we talk about guys being quick and decisive. That was a quick and decisive post move that made that Iowa gentleman look pretty silly.
All right, let's quickly hit numbers. Again, I thought the most important numbers were the 3-point numbers, but Indiana getting 16 offensive rebounds.
Yep.
And I don't know, what was the final rebounding total?
It was 39, 20,
39,
something.
So, that was a big focus for Archie on his pregame radio show, because this has been the one thing that Indiana's always been able to lean on is, rebounding. And that's been missing these last few games. Indiana was back crashing the glass. Indiana did turn it over 17 times, but they also forced 19 of Iowa. And a lot of that was just getting in passing lanes, being active.
There was a segment of the game where both teams were kind of in a malaise, and you just saw turnover after turnover after turnover. And you get into that pattern both ways, and it just...
What, you mean when the refs were officiating like it was a football game?
Essentially, yeah.
Funny how turnovers happen when you're doing that. So those numbers really stood out to me. Also, Indiana was 16 assists on 28 made field goals, which is a really good number for the Hoosiers. And they held Iowa to just 9 assists on 26, because a lot of what Iowa was doing was basically Luka Garza just getting the ball and creating shots for himself.
Yeah, or other guys driving to the basket. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot within the flow of the offense.
11
and
steals.
That's what you would want to do to Iowa, because, man, when they're going, they can be really crisp offensively. They were actually the first few minutes, and then Indiana really locked down and, made them uncomfortable, as you said.
The 11 steals is big too, just because of aggressiveness on defense. It looked like they were trying to take the ball, and jumping in front and trying to. And we mentioned Race had 4 of them, and a couple of those were just anticipating passes and stepping into the passing lane, instead of just waiting for your guy to get it. And I thought that was big. Also, nice to see 45 bench points from Indiana tonight of their 80.
45 from the bench, 44 from the starters. That's good balance.
Andy, any other numbers for you that are important?
A couple. We talked about the turnovers. IU only had 6 in the first half when they built the lead, so I think that was important. There was some sloppy stretches in the second half where I felt like they got too tentative and were either trying to run clock the whole time or throw really aggressive lob passes. Points off turnovers, though, IU did win that 25-22. Fast break points was a big one, 22 for IU, just 7 for Iowa. Some of the steals lead to those kinds of things. And even given how many points the Garza had, points in the paint, IU did lose that 38-30. Part of that is actually shooting the ball well from 3-point range and not playing as much inside. But that was a struggle. And then 8 for 8 down the stretch and free throws. Justin made 2. Devonte had 2. Rob had 2,
up when they needed to,
and Trayce had 2. It was funny. They held up at one section of the game. They showed like Iowa's huddle, and they held up a board of who was on the floor, and they had Durham and Justin circled because I think they wanted to start fouling. There was about 2 minutes left and Durham went out not long after that, but Justin was the first guy they fouled when they really started to foul, and like he stepped up and made them both. So that was really big. You could tell they had eyes on who they wanted to foul. Although if they've been watching IU shoot free throws all this year, they would just have circled everyone's name, but that's neither here nor there.
Worth noting, 10 of 17 as a team in the first half, 12 of 15 in the second. So they tightened it up a lot in the second half, making those free throws. And it was when they mattered, too. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call, we will hand out our game balls, hit any other lingering storylines. We've got to talk about that Jerome technical. And then we will look ahead to Sunday, Indiana's next opponent at Michigan, and then it will be time for last call. That is all next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Tim Priller, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
Thank you, Tim. By the way, it was nice meeting you on the flight home from Indianapolis to DFW.
You met a lot of people last weekend, Jerod.
We did meet a lot of people. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. While you are there, make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That is IU to 66866. All right, I'm Jerod Morris. Andy Bottoms is here. Ryan Phillips is here. We are breaking down Indiana's much-needed victory over Iowa. Guys, it is time for the game balls. I'll go first, and I'm giving it to Devonte Green. I said earlier, Trayce Jackson-Davis was Indiana's best player, and I believe that. But the shooting of Devonte Green to open the game, to close the game, was so impactful. And so, for the struggles that he has had, to kind of come back, play like he did tonight, and Ryan, as you said, really make a lot of good decisions. I mean, the 16 alley-oops that he threw, those weren't good. He kind of substituted bad shots for ill-timed alley-oops.
Yeah, and I said on Twitter, I was like, look, you throw one of those, I get it, because it brings the house down, crazy, whatever. You throw a second one, all right, we're teetering on the edge here. You throw a third, and it's like, dude, sit down.
We need practice them. Yeah, like his alley-oops are always like into the rafters. He almost got Trayce killed because Trayce is just like he's throwing an alley-oop for everything.
He's throwing an alley-oop to someone with student tickets in the third row. Yeah, it's like
be careful because Trayce will go after it and then he goes flying into the stands. But no, this was a really good night. This was good Devonte. This is the kind of Devonte that, if you get this kind of Devonte and this Indiana team gets into the NCAA tournament, this team can win a couple games when you get a guy like that shooting like that. So it's always nice to be reminded of what he can do when it's really good. Now we just hope to see it once, twice, 3 times, 8 more times. Who knows? However many times before, his career at Indiana is done. We'll take it, Devonte, as many times as you want to give it. Tonight was a great game for him. So he gets my game ball. Andy, who gets yours?
Yeah, I would give mine to him as well. I think in a team that was really lacking energy coming out of the Purdue game and not necessarily at the beginning of the game, but he gave them such a spark where if Iowa strings together another couple of baskets and gets up 8 points early, I think things could get away from IU pretty quickly. We saw that in the Purdue game. We've seen that in some of these road games where when things start to go downhill, it goes downhill in a hurry. And so him coming in, making those shots, and even to go back to what, Ryan talked about, what Ken Bykoff had tweeted out, only taking the 4 shots in the second half, those couple threes toward the end were huge when they really needed them toward the end of possessions. But in general, played, I think, as under control as you can reasonably expect him to do. And I just thought that boost that he gave them in the first half, put him over the top from a game ball perspective. But I would argue with no one if they wanted to try to give it to Trayce or even Race Thompson, because I thought those guys were both, those are the 3 guys they sent to the press conference. And I thought rightfully so. Those were the 3 guys that were the biggest factors in the game.
All right, Andy or Ryan, give it to Race. Make your case.
I'm sticking with Devonte Green. It's a clean sweep. 27 points in 25 minutes. Yeah, you get the game ball.
Yeah.
I just thought, again, I thought the key is Andy mentioned, the second half, he didn't just come out and shoot 12 shots, and just fire up shots from all angles. He did hit kind of a crazy 3 late in the shot clock there that he knew was going in. He was jogging back on it, where it was kind of an awkward position, and he put it in. But other than that, I really thought he played a restrained game. The shots weren't there in the second half. Iowa was overplaying him, and he stayed.
A restrained game. Boy, context is important for that comment.
It was restrained in the second half. He was restrained. I thought he played a smarter game.
I agree with you. That's what's crazy about it.
I know, right? So anyway, I just thought it was a really excellent performance from him. And again, even if you get 2/3 of that Devonte every game, you'll take it. And so just a great night for a senior and a great moment for him to do that at home, especially with his brother watching, and especially after all the questions that have been asked about him. We've been as harsh as him on anybody, and I tweeted this out here. I am so here for the Devonte Green redemption tour. Like, yes. Devonte, prove me wrong, please. I am begging you. I want you to. I absolutely want you to prove me wrong. I think that would be a great way to end his story at Indiana if he just went on a roll.
I did anoint myself the president of the fan club, so probably there have been.
That was a long time ago, Jerod. That was a long time.
That was a long time ago, but boy, it feels good on nights like tonight. All right, the other game ball that all 3 of us want to give out is to everybody who was at Switchyard Brewing on Saturday night after the IU Purdue game. Obviously, we wish that we could have met there under a little bit different circumstances, with Indiana playing better and winning. But it was awesome. It was a great event, and it was really amazing, certainly for me, I'm sure you guys agree with this, to look out and see all those people there and to have the opportunity to talk with so many of you one-on-one. I'm telling you, going there, going to the game, being able to experience Bloomington is awesome. The thing I come back from those trips always and just feel filled is the connections that we get to make with audience members. And it ups my enthusiasm to come back and do the show tenfold when we get back. So I really want to thank everybody for coming out, making sure that we weren't just talking to an empty room, and letting us know how much you appreciate what we do. It really, really does mean a lot.
Man, that would have sucked if Switchyard set everything up and it was just an empty room. But no, it was packed. I think we all talked afterwards how shocked we were, how filled it was, how many people were there, especially after a loss. It was really just awesome to see everybody there, get to shake hands, put names to names to faces and all that stuff, faces to names, I guess, because we're on the internet. But it was really great to meet everybody. And this is something after this weekend we've talked about. We're going to try and do this more often and potentially do 2 a year instead of 1. And then who knows after that. But it was great to see everybody. And thanks for coming out. It was awesome. And if you didn't get to make it, we'll have something for you sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Yeah, I would echo what you guys said. It was a really fun weekend. The only part that wasn't fun was the part where the game was going on. The halftime was cool. The second half of the game was not good, and then everything else was
cool.
Even our Friday night was awesome. We met some national champions.
Yeah, yes. Everything, like literally everything, but from when the beginning of when the buzzer sounded to begin and end each half. Other than that, everything was great. So, no, it was cool to share it with so many people out there, and we joked about how many people showed up at the first one that may or may not have even known what they were there for. So it seemed that everyone was genuinely there for the meetup and for the show. So it was cool to be able to do that at a fun venue. And it was a really good time that we had. Always fun to get back to Bloomington, as Jerod said, that much more fun when we get to meet everybody.
Coach remains disappointed, Ryan, though, that your mom did not bring any tiramisu to the
it wouldn't keep on a plane. It really wouldn't. It would flatten out, collapse.
It wouldn't. All right. At this point, let me say goodbye to our radio audience because this is Thursday night. So post-game show is going to double for Assembly Call Radio. If you've been listening on the radio, we appreciate you being here. We will be back on Sunday for the IU Michigan post-game show. I'm going to be there. Ryan is tentatively going to be there. And then I don't know what Andy and Coach's schedule is. So we will see. But we will have the post-game show for you immediately following that. And then, of course, every Thursday night, join us at our website for Assembly Call Radio. We appreciate you guys listening, and we will talk to you, radio listeners, soon. For everybody else, we're going to stay right here because we have more to talk about in this game. Guys, I want to talk real quick a little bit of Jerome Hunter. I thought this was one of Jerome's poor performances in a while, and it has nothing to do with the technical foul. He did come in and make a three, and that was a big shot. But I thought, I don't know if I texted you guys this. I texted someone that, Jerome is just kind of a space cadet tonight. And every now and then you get this game. Like the Michigan State game is like this for him.
It's a freshman.
He is. And it's, it's understandable. I'm not mad at him. We didn't need his contributions tonight. And that's what you want. You don't really want to have to rely so much on freshmen. You like for it to be, a little bit of a bonus. Obviously that's not the case for this team because Trayce is the team's best player. But I just thought he just wasn't quite as mentally locked in. I will say, just to be clear, I had no problem. I'm not mad at him for the technical foul. If you missed it, on the other end, he got beaten by Joe Wieskamp, like really bad, which is actually what prompted the Space Cadet comment. And then Wieskamp just got in his face and was jawing at him to the point that I thought they were going to call a technical foul. So then they come on the other end, and McCaffrey and Wieskamp are basically like sandwiching him with their toolness and like jawing at his face. And they're in his face, and so all Jerome did was put his finger up. And yeah, he put his finger in the guy's face, but I had zero. If you're a ref, you either call nothing or you call a double technical foul.
You split him up and tell him to calm down.
Yeah, I thought it was horse crap. So I get it. Like, is getting a technical there, that's not a good time for a technical.
No.
And if you want to tell Jerome, hey, next time maybe don't put your finger up so you don't draw attention to yourself, fine. But I just thought that was bad officiating more than it was a bad decision by Jerome. And frankly, on a team that is devoid of emotion sometimes, I really don't mind a guy standing up for himself. So maybe I'm in the minority and it was bad timing. That's not something, it's a teaching moment, but I'm not mad at Jerome for it. And I don't think he was necessarily in the wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a weak technical. I thought that you could have called it on any number of people who were in that situation there. Good on Race and a couple other guys to pull him away and kind of be like, yes. Hey, calm down. You don't, because they saw it. Okay, even if this is stupidly gets called, it's going to hurt the team. So, but yeah, I had no problem with that. As far as his game, Jerome, this to me was as we said, kind of a freshman game. I didn't think he was horrific. I thought he got beat a couple times, and that's not good. And I thought that he wasn't providing a whole lot on offense, but his presence on the court is better than the presence of some other guys on the court at times. I feel like just his threat that he could hit a three helps space the offense. I think he's willing to pass it into the post more than some other guys. He had one where he posted up, possession where he posted up and was going to try and make a move. Then Garza came over and he was like, well, that's not going to happen. But I think that, I just think that he's more of a threat on the court than some other guys are. So I'm willing to deal with an off game. I mean, I know you're not saying that you think that he should get less time, but yeah. I just think that even his presence on the court when he's not having his best game is more beneficial than some other guys. And I, with his size, his length, everything,
We've seen the breakout from him now.
Yeah.
So now it's a little more stark when he's just not quite into it.
But he's always a threat to knock down a three. He didn't get any chances really in the second half to take a shot, but he's always a threat. And the guy can actually knock him down now and is feeling confident about it. I thought you texted me, you thought his shot was flat. The second three he took, and it was
the one was like, drive. Yeah, it was a line drive.
Yeah, I don't know if it came off low on his hand or what. I mean, I'd have to rewatch, but yeah, it was definitely just a straight line from his hand to the front of the rim. So, but those are few and far between for him. So I am okay with this performance. Hopefully he watches the film, learns a little bit and develops. But I was surprised we didn't see him after that technical. I thought he'd come back in because I didn't think he was playing that poorly.
Yeah, I think the challenge with that was Justin was doing a good enough job on Wieskamp that I think if somehow you could meld Jerome's offensive game and confidence with Justin's defense when he's really locked in, you'd have a hell of a player. So I think that's really the reason. I would agree with you, Jerod. I didn't really have an issue with the technical. I don't really. It sounded like from people who were there that Iowa spent the better part of the second half trying to goad IU into reacting to something, and
they played like a bunch of cowards. I was really disappointed.
A ton of flopping. I mean, the one that they go to the monitor, they call a foul on Justin Smith. I mean, he did kind of grab the guy going into the screen, but the only contact that was made that would have knocked him over was with Garza's shoulder.
Yep.
And he acts like he just got hit by a truck. And then I even thought the one that Kriener kind of got, made the basket and then came back through Trayce. I felt like that was
he ran into his arm
as well. I know, but even then, I feel like his arm like hit him kind of in the neck, and he's like holding his head and doing whatever.
No, but it was like you watch the way he ran back. He ran back towards.
Yeah, he
Trayce.
ran.
It wasn't like
he knew where he was. Yeah. It was. And then whatever number one Toussaint, I think he was all over the flopping as well. So anyway, it was just I just felt like that was just and Jerome was the one they happened to get the better of, I guess, to get to react to it. But yeah, I mean, I felt like you did, Jerod, where both guys are standing there jawing at him. He's in between them, and like nobody, the ref doesn't come to step in or do anything. And then he's the guy that gets mad because he, kind of pushes one away and, puts a finger in his guy's face, or maybe was pointing to the scoreboard. Who knows what was going on? But I just thought that was silly. But they let a lot of things get out of hand, as Big Ten refs are wont to do.
Yes, as they are. By the way, the moment of the night was Coach's text about Fran McCaffrey, which we're not going to say on the air.
Yeah, no.
I've not heard that term in a while, but I was really excited to see it brought back. So
not a big Fran fan, Mr. Tonsoni.
No, man, that made me laugh. What else from this game? Anything else that we need to? We should give a tip of the cap to Archie Miller and the coaching staff with the team backs against the wall. Having them ready. I mean, again, it's kind of a roll of the dice when you play Devonte Green, and you got good Devonte tonight. But I thought the game plan was pretty good, and I thought some of the moves Archie made, riding Race Thompson when he's playing well. I thought for the most part, Joey Brunk only getting 10 minutes. Like I thought he made some pretty good decisions tonight. So I was, he beat Iowa by 12. I thought it was a pretty well coached game. So we hadn't mentioned him, so I thought I would. Any other storylines from this game that you guys want to talk about?
I thought he did a better job of, to your point, I think a little bit of this with Joey, although the fouls were a part of that. And even Armand, I mean, he got beat on defense a couple of times and he didn't come back in. Again, part of that, it's easy to not bring him back in because Devonte was playing so well. But I thought he did a better job than I feel like we've seen lately of saying, hey, this guy just doesn't have it. And I'm not going to keep rolling him back out there.
Yeah.
I even thought bringing Brunk back in toward the end. I mean, because Garza just immediately scored on him, and
his eyes got big as sauce.
So that was my one kind of questionable point where it's like I'm not sure why you wouldn't bring Jerod back in that situation. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, to get this team in any shape to be able to come out and play this game after the way they looked on Saturday, in a spot with a lot of pressure in terms of coming back to this game, you do give them credit for doing their best to get guys ready to play.
Okay, Ryan, I know you got to go, so why don't you do a last call, and then we'll look ahead to Michigan.
Good for Devonte Green is what I'll say. I thought that he came out and he really lifted this team and elevated them, and when he's going and he's hitting shots like we saw against Florida State, it's just so fun to watch. The problem is the valleys from those peaks are so hard to watch, but that's a guy who came out, and a lot of people have been asking questions about him and the other upperclassmen over the last couple weeks, really, and especially since that Purdue game. But he really stepped up, and good for him to do that. And you can be critical of the guy all the time, and I certainly am, but that performance shut me up for tonight. I mean, it really did. Like, that was fantastic, and he deserves all the credit for it. And hopefully we see kind of more of this because we need it badly. That guy can help lift this team to another level if he's locked in, if he's focused. And then credit to guys like Trayce Jackson-Davis and Race Thompson, younger guys who played their tails off, who really, really did play hard and really made things difficult for Iowa on the defensive end. And just, showed effort and showed that they can be difference makers despite their age. They can really battle with guys and make big plays. So those are my big observations for this one. And hopefully it was an absolutely huge win for Indiana.
Someone in the chat just referred to Fran McCaffrey as Mitch McConnell with a chin.
All right.
I don't know if that is a good description, but it did make me laugh. So I appreciate
Thanks for
the
tuning in,
creativity.
everybody. I'm out of here.
That's a good attempt. By the way, Juwan, OG, James Blackman Jr., all in attendance tonight. So that was nice to see. Andy, let's look ahead to Sunday. Indiana facing off against Michigan. The Wolverines, despite all the ups and downs that they've had, still ranked 20th in KenPom. They've only won 4 out of their last 9 games, but they've obviously been a much different team with Isaiah Livers than without him. And I believe he's been back the last couple of games when they beat Michigan State and beat Northwestern by 25 at Northwestern. So that obviously poses – they don't – I've been talking for a while about how this game, seems like one of the more winnable road games they have. It's decidedly less winnable if Isaiah Livers is out there, but still, a game, given how much they've struggled guarding big guys, that you feel like Indiana has some things they might be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, Livers has played at least 30 minutes each of the last couple of games. He's really been I know one of their games I watched, they put up some kind of graphic on just how different they'd been really on both ends of the floor with him. And they just don't have they got John Teskey. They've got other big guys that they'll play, but they're just not the threat to score and can't really stretch the floor in the same way that Livers can. So that's really the big matchup you look at from that standpoint. And then they're certainly going to put IU in ball screen situations where Teskey can pop out and make shots occasionally, and they're going to run tons of that stuff at IU. So it'll be interesting to see who, big guy wise that IU plays and how they play it. I think it would be another good game for Race Thompson to play in, that he is a decent matchup with Livers, given his mobility and things like that. So it's hard to think that the way he played tonight would not translate into more minutes in the future, but I think that will be a big one. And then, at the point of attack defensively, can you control Xavier Simpson or Jeff Jackson Simpson or whatever he's going by, as you go through and do that. So that'll be a good test for Rob to really be able to be locked in and not get frustrated there. So, it'll be definitely with Livers there. It looks a whole lot tougher than it did before. From a statistical perspective, Michigan doesn't force a ton of turnovers on defense. So that for an IU team that has the propensity to turn it over will be a good thing. And Michigan is first in league play, at least in turnover percentage offensively, and first in 2-point shooting. So, those are things to watch for, trying to keep them from getting easy shots around the basket and figuring out what they can do. But at least the team goes into it with some confidence. Michigan comes into it with confidence as well, although they started the game against Northwestern shooting really poorly and still ended up winning by 25. So we'll see what happens. Any road win at this point for any team, IU in particular, looms large. So I think you head into these next couple saying if you can find a way to get one of them, you'll feel pretty good about yourself. If you find a way to get both, you're going to feel great.
9, 10, 11, 12, 19, 21. Do you know what those 6 numbers represent, Andy?
I do not. I probably should, because
those are the current KenPom rankings of Indiana's last 6 opponents. Mm-hmm. And I say that to say, look, it's been rough. Indiana is 2-4, obviously, in those 6 games. And they bookended it. They had a home win against Michigan State, a home win against Iowa in between the losses to Maryland, Penn State, Ohio State, and Purdue. But it is kind of important to look back and realize how difficult this schedule has been for Indiana. And look, Indiana should have played better in some of these games. It should have competed more against Penn State, should have won the Maryland game, should have competed more against Purdue. All of that is definitely true. But when you look at a gauntlet like that, going into it, we obviously wanted to win more than 2 games. But, all things considered, it kind of feels, and this is what I want to get your opinion on, Andy, it kind of feels like Indiana treaded water. Like if the goal is just get to the NCAA tournament, and you look at these 6 games against all those highly rated teams, you got 2 wins. Now you go down the stretch, you've got 16 wins in the bank. You're 6-7 in conference play. You feel like you need to get, at least 3 probably to feel good about your NCAA tournament chances. You still have 3 games at home. So we've talked a lot about, they just got to kind of stay in front of the curve for the tournament. And despite all the struggles, it still kind of feels like they're there. Is that a fair assessment? How much does this win kind of help from a bracketology perspective?
Well, it definitely helps in the sense that it's another high quality win. IU is in a situation like a number of Big Ten teams where they don't really have bad losses. They're getting tons of good opportunities for wins. you just can't get yourself to a point where the volume of losses is so much that you can't overcome it. So this game helps keep you away from that. And I think looking back at that stretch, the way that you talked about, if you find a way to get one other win in there, whether that's holding on to the Maryland game or whatever the case may be, I think you feel ecstatic coming out of that. If you were to come out of that at 7-6 as opposed to 6-7. So to your point, I think you've largely treaded water. You hate to lose 2 home games during that stretch. I think that's the difficult part, especially as you come into this stretch where 4 or 5 come on the road at some tough places to play against some really good teams. All the teams are really good at this stage. And so the margin for error is still really small. But this game, I think losing this game, things could have really gotten away from them pretty quickly. So it does a couple things, keeps you from taking another loss and gives you another quality win. So I think it's, again, you got 7 games left at this point. Can you find a way to go? If you find a way to go 4-3 and get yourself to 500 in the league, I think it's pretty smooth sailing. If you go 3-4, probably still okay. Anything less than that, it just starts to get to be where the volume of losses is. You just don't want that to get too high. There's a whole lot of history around, how far over 500 teams have to be and different things like that. So it definitely keeps the worst at bay for the moment. And I think coming off of that 4-game losing streak, that's as much as you can ask for.
All right, you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember that because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you will find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com and use that promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. All right, Andy, it is time for last call. Ryan already did his, so you have the honors.
Just a huge bounce back performance to really, you're not going to say salvage the season. I don't know that things were quite that dire, even though they felt like it, but an impressive performance for the team to come through in a really difficult spot, given what we've seen. Hopefully reminds them of the potential that is there and what they can do when they're, to Archie's point, focused on the right things, and however you want to, whatever cliche you want to use, it was a good bounce back for them, and again gives them what hopefully is some much needed confidence heading into that. I mean, we saw what that Purdue game, beating Iowa was able to do for Purdue, gave them confidence to go on the road and come into IU and play really well. Hopefully a similar thing happens for IU, beating them, going into these road games, trying to figure out a way to win one of them at least, and going from there. And like Ryan said, you're happy for a guy like Devonte. I think he's been so maddening because that performances, you can't expect this on a night in and night out basis for sure, but that performances like this are in there, and how good he can be. And you see that sometimes he just doesn't live up to what you've seen from him at times. And that becomes frustrating for everybody, probably frustrating for him as well. Some of Archie's comments about him after the game, you can just tell the, kind of push and pull between those guys is just a challenge from a personality standpoint, from a way they play the game standpoint, and things like that. But excited for him to be able to do that in front of his brother. Sounds like Archie did ask what we talked about, whether he could keep him, they could keep him from the Lakers, but he was told no. So that's all you can do. But good performance and big one from Race. I think he can be a guy who, we've talked about this with Jerome and some of the other younger guys, as he starts to get more comfortable with play like this. Can he be a guy that really sparks something late in the season because of what he can do from a versatility standpoint? So like I said, I think Michigan is a good matchup for him, and you see what he can do. And then as we've talked about many times, just a great performance from Trayce on both ends of the court, and a guy who really is stepping into a leadership role as a really young guy, just leading with effort and those kinds of things. So a lot of positive things for tonight, as many negative things as there were after some of these other games. So you just kind of, to use my own cliche, you just kind of take it one game at a time, figure out which team's going to show up, and then go from there. So hopefully this team finds its way to Ann Arbor on Sunday.
By the way, don't look now. You may recall this offseason, I said many times Indiana would finish in the top half of the country in three-point shooting. They're 207th. They're creeping up there. 2 out of the last 3 games, they've been really good from downtown. 8th in conference play. This is obviously not where we want to be, But the shooting is improved. Devonte Green shooting 38.3% from three-point range now. Rob Phinisee 39.6%. So those guys are holding up their end of the bargain. Obviously, we need to get some of the younger guys shooting a little bit better, but those numbers at least going up. Yeah, big win for Indiana tonight. The Hoosiers absolutely had to have this one. They got it. I'm proud of them. I'm happy for Devonte, and I continue to be impressed with Trayce Jackson-Davis, who ever since he had that little lull mid-season has really, really just been a rock that Indiana can count on. He was the one guy bringing energy against Purdue, I thought, and played pretty well that game, and he was terrific tonight. So kudos to all those guys. But I want to save the rest of my last call to dedicate this show to Andy Campbell's father, Ed, who passed away on Monday. Andy is a longtime listener of the show. He emailed me to let me know that his father, Ed, passed away. His father, Ed, actually graduated in 1953, and then Andy graduated in 1987. So obviously both years at Indiana hung banners. Hopefully Andy has some children or grandchildren that he's going to send to Indiana so they can graduate and get us another banner. But, you know, there were a couple of, talk about meaningful moments, there were a couple of meaningful moments that Andy pointed out that he remembered because, as he said, you know, connecting about IU sports, that was, you know, kind of a special thing for he and his father. And two moments that really stood out to him. One is a tear running down his father's face as time wound down on the Big Ten title-clinching game in 1983. That, of course, was the season that Bob Knight dedicated the banner to the fans, seeing that tear run down his dad's face. And the other one was in 1987, the home win over Michigan. I was there. That's when my dad was coaching under Bill Mallory. Just a huge win. The last time we beat Michigan. And he said that the memory was seeing his dad laughing hysterically. And his quote was, "The emotion that is IU basketball will bring you to tears, but not football. When I looked over this time, he was red-faced from laughing hysterically. This man had suffered years and years of IU football games as a student and an alumni. I never saw him laugh harder." So great stories, Andy. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. We wish you and your family all the peace, you know, as you mourn your father's passing, as you celebrate his life. And again, we really appreciate you celebrating that with us. So to close out here, in your father's honor, we will play this.
When my time on earth is gone and my activities here are past, I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my...
All right, that is going to do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks, as always, to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produces a lot of the music that you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Sunday after IU Michigan. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
I always get the sense when you hear Yogi do that he's kind of like laughing and smirking while saying it. Like, why am I doing this?
Maybe.
It's like, I'm going to do this because this guy paid me on Cameo.
Yeah.
But this is kind of cheesy. And he would be right about that, but we still appreciate him doing it anyway.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Yogi. Max Bielfeldt is on Cameo. Once I get a few minutes, I got to get on there and try to work in how we can get him to say better than advertised on.
Nice.
You're listening to the Assembly Call. Better than advertised. Like me, Max Bielfeldt. Maybe.
He'll probably be having the same smirk you just talked about with Yogi, I think.
I know. Maybe that's what we'll do. So Alex and I have been trying to figure out when we're going to do podcast on the brink, and we talked about trying to record it tonight while he's driving home. I'm wondering if my voice can handle 30 minutes.
He may need to do a lot of the heavy lifting on that if you're going to go down that road.
I'll just toss him out. So, Alex, what'd you think of the game? Mute.
Yeah. Well, he's driving through rural Indiana and losing his cell phone signal. That'll be great.
Be the worst episode ever. But we'll see. We will see. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Are you in Sunday or are you out?
I am not. Mallory has a game at the same time as the IU game. So
okay. Cool. We'll see if
I'm definitely out for that one.
Okay. Well, good stuff, man.
I'm good for the whenever the game is next week, midweek.
Wednesday, I believe, at the barn, right? Yeah.
Should be good on that. Yeah, I think it's
at the barn.
Is it later even? I think.
Oh,
yeah, it's not till 9.
Oh, it's one of those, huh?
Yeah, that's good. I was saying Mallory has a practice, but it's not. It certainly won't be at 9. So I'm good for that one.
All right.
Good for that one. All right. Well, that was much more fun to talk about. So
that was
hopefully more of those to come.
At least a few more of these.
no kidding.
At least a few more.
Yeah, I did not come in with a whole lot of optimism for the game, so it was nice to be pleasantly surprised.
I didn't either, and then Devonte happened.
Yep, and then I was like, well, maybe this game will be different.
It's great when Devonte happens.
Who knows? No, we'll see. I mean, I really think some of these guys playing well. Like, we talked about a lot with Jerome after the Purdue game on Sunday, but yeah, I mean, Race, if he can continue to give some fraction of this, they at least have some lineup flexibility that didn't feel like they had earlier in the year.
Yeah, he's a key for the rest of the year. His block percentage is 6.3%. His steal percentage is 3.1. I mean, that now obviously it's small sample size, but that's like elite level defensive numbers for those two. And if you can keep getting that kind of production from him, I mean, that's
he just does a good job of being in the right spot. I think Michigan's a good matchup for him, and then Minnesota, you got to find somebody that can guard Oturu.
That's right. Give him 40 and shut everybody else down.
Yeah, well, apparently that's the way you do it. held him just under 40, so it was a great job by all.
Jeez.
Yeah, I felt bad saying that about Trayce. I was like, yeah, he did a really good job defensively. Oh, that guy had 38, but he did. I mean, I know. It feels like a dumb thing to say, but it's like, shots.
Yeah. I mean, Garza hit shots that no one else can hit. You know what I mean? Like in the country.
Oh, yeah. Some of those just face-up jump shots and whatever. I mean, he did like a step-back three. I think he actually missed that one, but
yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm glad they don't have to play them again.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Definitely.
Who knows what Fran might do? But
who knows? All right. Talk to you all on Sunday.
Thanks, everybody.
I might talk to you on Podcast on the Brink. We'll see. Hopefully you can hear me if I do.
All right. Sounds good. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. See you guys later.
See you, man.